Hi, this is Gina. Thank you for joining me for this astrology chat live. Today, I want to focus on a simple method of chart interpretation called planetary dispositors. It sounds much more complicated than it is. I think that the best place to start when you're beginning to learn astrology is to learn the 12 zodiac signs. We tend to have some that we know better than others, and that persists for quite a while. But after having a pretty decent grasp on the signatures and the significations of the 12 different signs, I think the next best thing that you can look into is planetary dispositors. And again, sounds a lot more complicated than it is. So that's what I'd like to talk about today. And I'm so happy to see you. Good morning. So it sounds a lot more, I'm sorry, I've said that so many times. Good morning, Miss Dell. Let's get into this topic. Um, when we see the word dispositors, think of it as disposition. So, this word disposition, if we think about a person's disposition, we would be talking about sort of their inherent qualities, their inclinations, their tendencies. And it's the same when we're talking about planetary dispositors. Basically, what we're looking at is a planet when it moves through the different signs and houses, it takes on the disposition of the ruling planet of the sign it's moving through. So let's just use, I was thinking about doing this today because the current chart is actually such a great example of all of this. But this works for any time, any astrology that you're working with, whether it's your own chart, other people's charts, or the charts of the day. Okay, so right now, for example, we have Mars in Cancer. Mars has been in Cancer for a while. Mars is retrograde in Cancer. And also, the moon is the dispositor of Mars right now. And that's because Cancer, the sign of Cancer, is ruled by the moon, and Mars is traveling through that sign. So Mars is taking on the disposition of the moon. So if you know a bit about what Mars is about, and you know a bit about what the moon is about, you can sort of put these two signatures together. And I think Mars and the moon are good examples because even if you don't know a ton about astrology, you have some associations with Mars, right? Maybe action, war, anger, things like that. And you have some associations with the moon, right? Emotions. Um, uh, I don't know. I feel like emotions are with women, those are themes that come to mind very easily with those. So when the moon is the dispositor of Mars, it's like the moon has the disposition, or Mars has the disposition of the moon. Mars is doing moon things, right? So Mars is still Mars, but he's having to move through the world in a moon-like way. Let's just take another example. And these, again, I wanted to maybe do this today because we have some planets going through some difficult dignities. And there are different ways to understand that. If you follow astrology, you know that Mars is retrograde right now. It's in Cancer. Mars has fallen in Cancer. Or I'm sorry, Mars is debilitated in Cancer. It's a difficult sign and house. We can think about that as being because it's so far away from Capricorn, but I also think that understanding that feeling of the dispositors is a really good way to understand this, to understand why Mars is a little uncomfortable right now. So this is the mundane astrology, right? This is the chart of today that we're all moving through. So we all have a feeling that our Mars, our sort of motivation, our drive, our will, because Mars is about more than war and action and all that. There's um, activity and confidence. All of that is sort of moving with a disposition that's sort of moon-like. Mars is having to do moon things. It's being emotional. It's reflecting on the past. It's being nostalgic. It's connecting with family. It's staying home. It's maybe not feeling as motivated. It's listening rather than acting. So, how are we all sort of feeling that and embodying that from within right now? And then, if you think about your own chart and you think about your Mars and what sign it's in, and you think about the ruling planet of that sign, it can help you to understand your signatures, right? So let's do another example here. Let's move over to Venus. So Venus right now is in Aries, another sign, another planet in a sign where it's not super comfortable. Um, so Venus is much happier over here in Libra, which is its ruling planet. So this is a challenging placement for Venus. But let's think about it from an energetic standpoint, from a dispositor standpoint, a disposition. So Venus is in Aries, which is ruled by Mars. So Mars is the dispositor of Venus while Venus is in Aries. So Venus has the disposition of Mars. Venus is doing Mars things, right? So we've got Mars over here doing moon things, and we've got Venus doing Mars things. So Venus is all about relationships and connection and assessing value and making things more beautiful. And then it's having to act in this sort of Mars like way. It's having to move forward. It's having to assert itself. It's having to think about, Venus is having to think about what she wants, right? Be a little more bold and assertive and about the self, which is Mars signatures, not naturally Venus signatures like it likes to be, if that makes sense. And then we also have we could do one more example. We have Mercury here in Pisces. Pisces is ruled by Jupiter. I use traditional rulerships for a lot of different reasons. I can explain that another time too. But right now, Mercury is having to do Jupiter things, right? So Jupiter is all about expansion and learning and growth, and Mercury is sort of very practical, very much about communicating and new ideas. And um, when it's in Jupiter, when uh, Jupiter is the dispositor of Mercury, it can be sort of a little confusing, a little overwhelming. It can be harder to grab on to our thoughts and ideas because it's so expansive and um, moving in sort of like a freer way. So I did think that this was a great time to explain that because we have so many planets in their detriment and in fall. We have planets in difficult dignities right now, but this does work at any time. You can think about your own chart, and it can be a helpful way to understand the disposition of the planets in the different signs. I wonder if anyone in the chat might have an example. If you want me to do an example of something from your chart, I'd be happy to talk about it. I think it's a better way of thinking about it than just thinking of your planet as like fallen or debilitated or something like that. For example, I have Mars in Pisces in my natal chart, and that can be seen as such a negative thing. But it's just that my Mars is doing Jupiter things. Um, my motivation doesn't sort of move in a normal way. It moves in a different way. It's not about like just like thinking about what I want and going after it. Things tend to be a little more confusing than that, a little bit more open ended than that. And I also have Neptune squaring my Mars pretty directly. So that brings in more of those sort of limitless, just strange signatures, blurry signatures. But yeah, this is a great way to think about the different planets in your chart. It can also be a great way of understanding exaltations. We have a lot of planets fallen right now or in their detriment, but planets can also be in their domicile, in their rulership. They can be exalted. You know, I think Aries, the sun being exalted in Aries is always the one that makes sense to me. The sun doing Mars things, cool, right? The sun getting really to shine. The sun having the disposition of Mars. The sun is exalted in Aries. And I get that sort of on an energetic level when I think about planetary dispositors, because the sun sort of getting that boldness and directness behind it, having that disposition, that tendency, that inclination, that inherent quality can really be helpful. Okay, so I see a question in the chat, which is great. I'll take this question from Miss Tell. Let's do your moon in Taurus, because I think that Saturn is going to be a little bit more about like the times that you grow up in, your circumstances, the things around you in your life. Whereas like sort of more the personal planets are where this really works best, Miss Tell. So if we're looking at the sun, moon, Mars, Mercury, or Venus, and planetary dispositors, it can really say a lot about your tendencies and your inclinations and things of this nature. So let's talk about that. So the moon is very happy in Taurus. The moon is doing moon things in Taurus. So when it comes to your emotions, when it comes to, well, wait one second. Venus. The moon is doing Venus things in Taurus. Yes. So that's even better. That coziness, that, forgive me, the moon's exaltation in Taurus. Why am I feeling a little bit confused? Sorry, my head, I'm feeling a little bit confused. But hold on just one second. I need to get a resource. Okay. Yes. Okay. I mean, I think that it's always good to to model that these things could be confusing and that we can all have moments of confusion. What I grabbed was this chart of planetary dignities. Can you see that? So this shows all of the essential dignities. So I was confused about Taurus because the moon is exalted. So here we have Taurus. The moon is exalted in Taurus, but it's Venus ruled. Of course. So the moon is doing Venus things. It actually kind of makes me think about what I was saying about the sun being exalted in Aries. The moon being exalted in Taurus makes so much sense because the moon is getting to do Venus things, right? So the moon is getting to feel super cozy and make things more beautiful. You know, you will find a lot of comfort in like a cozy sweatshirt, a really good meal, you might like to garden or do anything sort of with the earth, maybe walk in nature. The moon getting to behave in a Venus way is just lovely. And so this kind of a signature takes and seeks so much comfort in um, authentic connection, both with yourself and with others. You just sort of enjoy being in a body, right? So anything that where you get to do that, a wonderful bath, like I said, a good meal. Sometimes Moon and Taurus can really enjoy like comfortable fabrics, and you might be picky about like those kinds of things, and it just brings you so much delight to have this like fuzzy blanket or something. And so seeking a lot of comfort through Venus-like activities, and being sort of emotionally trending in that way. It's a very nice signature. It's a very cozy signature. And there's a lot of stability to it as well, which I think that the moon enjoys. I think the moon enjoys that beauty and that harmony and that stability of Venus. So thank you for bearing with me while I while I ran to check myself with this little chart. And I'm glad that I got to show it here today. And thank you for giving me that example. Thank you for being here. And whenever you're seeing this, I hope that you find the planetary dispositors idea to be helpful in chart interpretation, whether it's of your chart or of someone else's or the current chart of the time. And thank you all so much. Please give this video a like. It really does a lot to support the channel. And I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll be back again tomorrow. Thank you.